Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kelly and you found me here on Pick and Stitches, and today I'm going to show you how to free motion quilt just like this on this machine. Okay, if you remember a couple of months ago, I don't know, I got really busy in my sew sampler projects. We did this jelly roll quilt, and with this one jelly roll I had enough blocks to make the big quilt behind me. I also had some leftover, so I decided to make this donation quilt for kind of the toddler NICU size, and it used up 9 of my remaining blocks. I also still have 4 left, and I'm going to be making a pillow with that. So from one jelly roll and some border fabric, we really got a lot done. So that is why I wanted to kind of start with some jelly roll projects. Anyways, I digress. So today we're going to be working on how to quilt on this home machine. So we're going to start from scratch. We've got a finished quilted top with your sandwich materials. You're going to have your backing and your batting, binding, batting, they all get confusing. So we'll have our backing, we'll have our batting, and then we will have our quilt top. And those are the things we're going to start with. The other thing that I do like to use when I am basting this way is the 505 temporary adhesive spray. It's just what I've always used. There may be other things out there. This one is specifically for fabric. I felt like it was kind of expensive. I want to say it's like $13 a bottle, but it does hold and it does stay for a while. The other option that you could do is you can pin baste, where it's like the safety pin method. Just make sure that you've got your quilt on a surface that you won't gouge as you start to put your pins in, because the last thing you want to do is ruin your dining room table with your pins when you're getting ready to baste your quilt. So I'm going to show you start to finish how I baste a quilt and how I use my Juki to do the free motion quilting that I've been doing all these years. So I hope you'll join me. Let's check it out. Okay, so the first thing I always do if I'm basting a quilt this way is going to be starting with my backing. So I've already pre-cut my backing to the correct size, and we're going to put our backing with the pretty side down. So we're starting to make that quilt sandwich. So the next layer is then going to be our batting. So I've done this process before on the wood floor, on a tile floor. You can lay out your total backing the way you want it. I advise that you tape it down. In fact, I may mimic that with another quilt just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. But this table is quite large, so I can do most of my projects on this table before I got the long arm. And now that I've got the long arm, well, I let it go over there. But, okay, so now we're going to take our batting and you're just going to flatten it out. If your batting has a lot of wrinkles, I like to try to let it relax first. So you can spritz it with a little bit of water and lay it out flat, and it will really relax. If there's a lot of cotton in it, that will help. So I'm going to flatten this way out. And as you can see, I don't know what I was thinking when I cut my backing. I cut it exactly to size. I have like another yard of this over there, but I don't have 38 inches plus the 3 I'd like to have on either side. So typically you're going to want to have a couple inches of wiggle room on all sides. So I've got a couple inches of wiggle room front to back, but I do not have a couple inches of wiggle room right to left. So I'm going to lay that out, and I can just kind of pull it towards me to smooth it out. So that's the beauty of a table. Now, if you're doing this on your dining room table, I will advise you, if you're going to pin, you need to have something underneath, because it would be really easy to go in with your safety pins and gouge your table. So definitely put your self-healing mat down, or maybe don't use a really expensive dining room table. Use something that you don't mind, you know, if it gets a little bit wonky. So now that we've got our 2 layers out, I'm going to go ahead and get my quilt top, which I've hung over here. And you guys may recognize this. We did that jelly roll quilt a little while back, and I had some extra blocks. So I decided after that one that I would make this smaller one, and I'm actually using a flannel batting because because I thought this would be a really great NICU donation. So that is my plan there. Maybe it's a little bit big. Maybe they'll end up doing a toddler. But so we're just going to lay our topping down and get it lined up. I'm going to kind of smooth it out. And again, I did not leave myself enough room on right to left. So I'm just going to kind of fiddle with it and make sure that I have it centered all the way around. And if I have a really large quilt, I'll walk around the table and go stand over there. But if I do that now, I'll have my back to you, and that's not what I want to do. Okay, so once you get it all smoothed out where you want it, the first thing I'm going to do is just get this rolled up, and I'm going to attach the back. And so if this is a really large quilt, I usually roll it like one block at a time or one square at a time until I get everything exposed. And then I just like this 505 temporary adhesive fabric spray. It's what I've been using forever. I've got the tiniest bit left in this can. I probably get like 2 sprays out of it and be done. And you always want to use this in a well-ventilated area. So I'm just going to give it a reasonable spray. And then I'm going to fold this section down and press that down and make sure everything is flat. And then I'm going to do the next one. That is really out though, so we're going to move on over. And it just depends. I feel like sometimes on the fabric, it feels like it adheres better if I spray the fabric. Sometimes it feels like it adheres better if I spray the batting. But just kind of play with it. I haven't actually done a backing out of flannel with this particular batting, so I'm not sure which one's going to be my best hold. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but on the other side. So I'm just going to fold the batting up that I should have probably cut off because that's extra. And then I'm going to roll this back until I can feel that it's made good contact, and that's where it is. It's halfway through this block. I can feel it's really wanting to stay. So I'm just going to spray a little bit more. This is actually my preferred side to stand on because I can push forward and really smooth that out. I know that's not visually something that you guys can see, but that from a body mechanics and ergonomic and doesn't make your back hurt works best for me. So I end up with a lot of the quilt draped over this side because I just keep advancing and pulling that quilt towards me to get that side down. Now this is where my, got one more round. There we go. I want to make sure I came all the way out to that border edge, maybe just a hair further. And then if you get any adhesive on your cutting mat when you're done, you can just spray that down with a little bit of alcohol or use alcohol in a towel. It usually wipes up pretty easily. Okay, so that is my backing attached to the batting. Now I'm going to attach my quilt top to the batting. And I'm going to just do the same thing. I'm going to roll it up, and I'm going to do a little bit more because I like working this direction better. Now I find here usually that top fabric is what's going to make it hold the best. And I'm pretty liberal with the spray. You probably don't have to use that much, but if I'm going to go to the trouble, I want it to stay put. So and so I'm just trying to make sure that I don't have any wrinkles in there. A lot of times, especially I found with that warm and natural batting, it had that paper wrapped around it, so it was always kind of wrinkly. So definitely letting it relax. If you've got somewhere for it to lay out or drape over something, that will help it relax through those wrinkles. Okay, almost there, guys. And you absolutely could pin this with the pins, but I find when I start to free motion quilt, I kind of get going and I don't want to stop the motion more frequently than I have to. So stopping to pull pins is just not the way I like to do it. But I know plenty of people who do really well with that. So, okay, so I can feel it's kind of resisting. It doesn't want to pull up anymore. And I'm going to fold that down. Okay, so there we go, guys. Now we have a basted quilt. If you have a really large quilt and you're concerned about it, you can always bring it over to the pressing station and just give it a quick heat press to really set things. I haven't found that I really need that unless it's like a gargantuan size. I usually just kind of roll around the outside edges because that's where I tend to not quite get it all down, and then I'll give it a little extra spray and just double check it. But that is it. I will get the sewing machine set up and then I will show you how we're going to free motion quilt it. Guys, and as I'm getting set up to free motion quilt, the first thing I'm always going to want to do is probably wind a couple of bobbins. I want a couple of bobbins spare so that no matter what, I'm not going to have to stop and cut thread to wind some bobbins. And I'm looking in my drawer, I've got 2 totally wound bobbins. Today I'm going to be doing this free motion quilting with just a plain old white. I might typically use something a little bit more kind of middle ground, but because I have this Cairo cotton and I have never had an opportunity to free motion quilt with it, I wanted to give that a try. So I think the white will look totally fine. It'll look great on the back. So I'm going to load the same thing top and bottom. Now I had one time that I totally forgot to drop my feed dogs, and I bent my needle bar and my machine was in the shop for a while because I'm a bulldozer and that's what I did. So the first thing I always do is drop my feed dogs, because if I don't want them dropped, the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to stitch in place. But if I forget to drop them, well, I might not have my machine for a little bit. So I've dropped my feed dogs. Now I need to switch to my quilting foot, and I just keep all of my quilting feet together. Actually, I keep all of my presser feet for this machine in here. And I'm just going to switch it out. This is a really quick and easy switch. We're just going to turn this screw right here. It drops off that presser foot. I add this one on. And off we go. Now I do like to use these gloves. They do help to kind of keep things, you know, it's easier to push it through when you have a little bit more tactile. It is a little bit harder for me to grab the threads when I pull them up, so I usually leave one on and one off until I get the threads cut, and then after that I'll put the second one on. And I do like to kind of start in the middle. Since we spray basted, you don't have to do that. You could start pretty much anywhere, but it's just a force of habit for me. I usually start somewhere in the middle and then I just kind of work my way out. So I'm going to drop my speed down just a hair again. So this is a good time to practice some of your skills. You might look at doing some loops and some meanders. So I usually end up doing some patterns that are similar to that. And I end up doing that on the entire quilt. But there's a whole lot of tutorials out there on how you might want to work with rulers and work on your shapes and practice. But for me, I'm really just looking, I wouldn't get into this corner. Let's get somewhere over here. Okay. That's really the shape that I'm looking for, kind of all over my quilt. I have some kind of almost dolphin tails. I have some fingers that reach out. I end up doing some circles and some loops, but that gives me some variety as far as the pattern goes. But let's just do one more to warm up. Okay. So let's try that again. So I want my meander to be really irregular. I don't want to have the same shapes over and over again. But one of the things you might want to practice is doing just some irregular loops to kind of work on your size and your shape. And if you really want to get specific about them, then you could draw yourself some guidelines. But as I'm quilting, I'm really just trying to cover the entire quilt. And then I'm going to up down my needle to get that thread up. So then I'm going to drop my needle, and I want to take a couple stitches right there to kind of lock it into place. And then I'm going to just go ahead and snip that. It's not going to be the closest, but that's okay. I'll come back and snip it later. And once I like pick it up with these gloves, if I don't have a free hand that doesn't have gloves on, I can't drop it. Like, it just sticks to the glove. So then we're going to make sure you're comfortable, and we're just going to start going. And I do like to have my pedal fully pressed, but I have dropped my speed just a little bit. Otherwise, I feel like I get a little bit kind of jerky and swirly. But you're just going to try to make some natural shapes. So I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread. Kind of pull these off to the side, and then the next time I have to stop, I'm going to go ahead and come back and cut those. So I'm going to throw a couple stitches right here, and then I'm going to head off. And then when you regroup, you want to make sure you're continuing that same curve. These off. I have to take the gloves off to get the strings off. So this thread is white, and we talked about that, but it's kind of disappearing. I'm having a hard time seeing what I've already quilted and what I haven't. So that is one nice thing if you pick something that's a little bit contrasty. But then once I get this off of the quilting table and bound and washed, you will never see any of the imperfections because they're going to blend in so well. So if you're doing really intricate quilting and you want to see your design, I do not suggest getting something that's going to just kind of blend like this is. But I'm looking, and so I have a little bit of stitching here and a little bit of stitching here, and so I need to fill in this section. So that's what I'm going to work on, and then we're done. have to regroup because I need to get way up in here. Let's just rotate this a little bit. Not you. Okay, so I'm looking back at my curve. So I want to keep that same line, and then I want to travel to about here. Yeah, so not only do we want to stitch it down so that it holds together, but if you leave a big void that's not stitched down, then you're really going to see that once the quilt is washed and crinkly. Okay, I just loosened up this screw on the bobbin a little bit. I just feel like it's a tiny, tiny bit tight. And we're at the end of the project, but I just think that'll help it run a little bit smoother. I'm really not feeling like we're getting that many thread breaks or anything unusual, but I'm thinking that bobbin thread may be a bit tight. Okay. Alright guys, I think we have it all done. I'm going to look back and make sure I didn't miss any sections, and then I'll get you guys some pictures of it up on the wall. Okay guys, now we have our quilted project mostly finished. Every inch of it is ready to go. So this is how you would typically probably get it back from the long armor. So the next thing we're going to do is square up our quilt, and you would do that at your cutting station just like normal. I've seen people get out like the laser levels and be really incredibly precise, but for me, I'm just going to get it done. So I've got a pretty big table here. I'll probably move all of my stuff back off and then be able to use these really longer rulers and cut along the length of it. And in order to get it ready for binding, some people like to leave a 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch of batting on the front so that when you go to wrap your binding in, the binding looks fuller. I don't find that I need to do that, but if that helps your binding look more full, that might be something to consider when you're trimming up the quilt. But for me, I'm just going to trim it up as is. And the way if you've watched me very often, I just kind of get it done. So this is a 24.5 inch ruler. So I'm going to line this up with the edge of my border, and I'm going to go mostly up the ruler, and then I'm going to move my ruler up and continue all the way off the edge. Now I would normally cut this way, but I'm trying to do it for you guys on camera a little bit. So usually you don't want to move your work, but do as I say, not as I do. I've said that before on this channel, I'm pretty sure. And this is a small-ish quilt. It's not going to be as cumbersome as some of the bigger ones. Okay, so that's one side trimmed up, ready to go. I'll probably move this off the table when I quilt the big one. For sure. And I don't know, I may even quilt that one. I'm kind of thinking like a baby pink thread or a gray thread, or even a baby blue. Some of those will really look good. With this one, I wanted to use this cotton that I have had now from Juki Junkies. I really like it. It's half the price of the Aurifil, and I'll tell you, as I quilted this one out today, I really did not see a difference in the thread quality. So for me, if I was continuing to quilt on this machine with the 50 weight cotton, I would use the I would order from Juki Junkies and get the what is that called? Cairo. It's Cairo cotton. That's what it's called. and they have it in that 50 weight. I don't remember how many colors they have. I bought one of their thread collections, so they have a ton of the different glide colors, and there's a couple different weights. And then maybe it doesn't have the cottons in here. I thought it did. Color thread, glide 60s, glistens. I guess I didn't get the cotton card. So then I'm just going to line it up, do the same thing. Now this particular quilt is square, so I just took my leftover squares. I have 4 more left over that I'm going to be using for a pillow case. I need to change this blade, I think. There we go. All right, so now we have it all trimmed up. The last thing we're going to do is our binding, and I'm going to line that up in a separate video. So if you have any questions about the quilting or how to quilt on the Juki, I hope this helped answer them. I've done tons of quilt on this machine. Before I got the long arm, that was the only way I quilted anything, and I just didn't have it in the budget to be sending all of my stuff to a long armor. I think they do fantastic work. It's beautiful, it's amazing, all the things, but I would rather make a second quilt than pay for that much to have the quilt finished. So that's just my personal preference. If you have a long armor that you love, please continue to use them. It's fantastic. It's just not the route that I was taking when I started quilting. So again, this is all of the steps that we had leading up to our basting and our quilting. And if you enjoy these tutorials or any of my unboxing videos, it would help me out so much if you would like and subscribe to the channel. Every little number counts. If you know any other quilters that might benefit from some of my tutorials, please share it with them. I would appreciate it. And until we start binding, I will see you then. That squirrel's allowed. He's our friend. I feed him. Stop. Heidi, no. Go. Go. It's like you wait till my back's turned and then you bark again. Stop barking.